Hello everyone, I'm Mike. Now, in this video, I am going to be ranking every single Forsaken power from worst to best. Now, I've already done this 2 times, but every single time a new boss comes out, that means a new Forsaken power comes out, and that obviously means that we have to do the ranking again. Once again, it'll be based on my opinions, so if I was playing differently, I might have done the ranking a little bit differently. But without further ado, let's just get straight into it. Reclaiming the title, yet again as the worst Forsaken power, we have Elder. It will always be at the bottom for me. It will always be at the bottom for me. When I think about this Forsaken power from a progression perspective, by the time I get this thing, I have already chopped down a bunch of wood. And by the time I get later into the game, and by the time I need more wood at that point, I will have an axe that already cuts down wood fast enough to the point where this Forsaken power doesn't make a difference for me. It doesn't make a significant difference for me. So, with that in mind, I just can't put this thing anywhere else than the worst, because it's useless to me. It's absolutely useless to me. There is no reason to use this thing, unless you are really planning on cutting a ton of trees, and you want to save a little bit of time. Then sure, the Elder can be useful in that regard. Now, I am changing a little bit back to my original view, because coming in at number 6, we have Yakuth. I'm a little bit disappointed with the ASHLANDS enemies in one regard. I was expecting a little bit more elemental / magic damage, whatever you want to call it. I was expecting a little bit more elemental damage to be a factor, but it just ends up being just pretty much every single enemy of the ASHLANDS does physical damage. So this thing is completely useless. It's still completely useless. It doesn't really provide you with anything useful other than resistance against what I call popcorn enemies. Enemies that are not very tough, that pretty much just distract the player, that don't really do much. The only one I can kind of argue for is the Yawl, because it kind of breaks tradition with the elemental damaging enemies, in that it's not really that much of a popcorn enemy. It is quite a threat if you don't keep an eye on it and you don't kill it fast, because it'll spawn minions and such. Minions that deal physical damage, by the way, and can stagger you constantly, and are arguably more dangerous than the Yawl. I'm just saying, Yakuth is horrible. Just don't use it. Don't use it. It won't do you any good. Now we come to the mildly useful but niche Forsaken powers. At number 5, we have Mother. Mother has always been quite an interesting one to me. I think the last time I ranked it as the second worst. But I kinda see how that was a mistake, because I don't think it's that useless, to be honest. In fact, this thing is a lifesaver when you are out sailing, and can save you. It can save you upwards of hours of sailing, because this thing allows you to have consistent tailwind when you're sailing. The amount of speed that you gain from that, especially in my case, because I am the unluckiest person in the world when it comes to Valheim, and I will always have the wind against me no matter which direction I sail. If I'm sailing to the right, wind goes to the left. If I change to north, wind goes to the south. That's how it always works. And this thing just mitigates that. Completely mitigates, nullifies, and negates that. And makes it... It's really good for that. Now, obviously, outside of sailing, this thing becomes completely useless. And that is why I can only put it at number 5, because it fills a certain niche. At number 4, we have Queen. Speaking of niche, so either region, whatever you want to call it, either region is nice if you're a mage, but judging by my dual-wield axe and my lightning sword and my bow, it's safe to assume that I am not one of those persons. I find magic in this game to be clunky and annoying because I have to sacrifice my health and stamina. And that is also one of the reasons why this Forsaken power is a lot lower. If the Forsaken power, if mages used or sacrificed less health and stamina in favor of either, then this thing would probably rank higher, to be honest. Because you would have a bigger incentive to use mage. But the reason why this thing is not a Yakuth and Elder tier garbage is because it also increases your mining speed. For instance, Flame Metal ore takes between 5 and 6 hits with low pickaxe power. With this thing, it's between 3 and 4 hits. So that's really, really good. That's super nice. That means when you're doing the Leviathans in the Ashlands, you can get a lot more ore before it digs down to the surface again. And it is honestly quite good in that regard, but I can't give it more props than that, to be honest. So that was the number 4 spot. Now, last time I said that, you know, the number 2 and number 1 spot is sort of interchangeable. Now, the number 3 through 1 spots are interchangeable. Coming in at number 3, we have Eikthyr. It actually jumped up a spot since the new boss was added. And I can go on and on about how amazing Eikthyr is. And it's one of the main Forsaken powers that I use early game until I get one of the others. We're going to get to that at the end. Being able to run a lot farther and being able to jump without wasting your stamina is absolutely amazing. Can get you out of a lot of tough situations and can get you around the world a lot quicker. It just means that you can be a lot more efficient when it comes to traveling. And the thing is, there is nothing. It's not a niche, you know. You're constantly running around when you're not sailing. You're constantly running around, and using less stamina means that you can cover more ground, and it's incredibly useful. But I will say, it doesn't really have as good, how can I say it, defensive capabilities, and running and jumping can only take you so far, you know? So that is why I'm only going to put this at number 3. Now we have the new guy on the block. We have Father. Father is number 2. When I put this thing on the hook for the first time, I got very excited. I was like, yes, movement speed, yes, carry weight. There is nothing worse than being out and mining stuff and you get all these items and then, oh no, I've reached my carrying capacity. Well, with this thing, you can carry 300 more units. So what is 300 more units? It's equivalent to 150 Glausten or stone or black marble. It's 300 flame metal, or not 300 flame metal, it's 30 flame metal ore. That's quite a lot. That's quite a lot that you can carry. And then on top of that, increasing your movement speed by 10%. If you combine that, so I have a medium armor set with trousers of ask, and then I use the flame metal helmet, and then I change between this cape and this cape. When I want to run around, I use the Osksveen cloak, which makes me run. I mean, you can have a little demo. Like, that's how fast I'm running, and if you pair that with this power, wow, you're fast. You are so fast. It's incredibly good for getting out of tough situations, and it's incredibly good for hauling around items. I absolutely love this Forsaken power, and I like it more than Eikthyr because I feel like the further into the game you get, and the higher that your run speed or your running skill gets upgraded, the less useful this thing becomes, I feel I feel as though this thing just becomes less and less significant the more into the game you become. And this thing is really useful. Love it. Absolutely love it. But it can't trump, and it will never be able to. None of these will ever be able to trump the #1 spot unless it gets reworked. #1 for the 3rd time in a row, 3rd time that I've been making this video, it is Bonemass. I just can't justify ranking this anywhere below #1. This thing reduces damage to certain damage types, blunt/pierce, by, I think it's either 66 or 75%. I don't remember. It feels like 75%. And what this thing essentially does is it makes you unable to die for 5 minutes. That's what this thing does. It literally makes you unable to die for 5 minutes, provided you have armor and food. So, you know those new fortresses that you're doing? If you are scared of dying, if you pop Bonemass, then the only thing that can actually damage you are the warlocks. And like I said, the elemental enemies in this game are absolute jokes and should not be taken seriously. So, you pop this thing, you literally just can't die. You can't die. Like most of the enemies, I think the only enemies in the Ashlands that don't do physical damage are, what are the lava blobs and the warlocks. Everything else does physical damage. The marksman, the warrior, the twitcher, the Morgan, the Osksveen. All of them do physical damage. And you go back to the other biomes, you have like that one enemy that does elemental damage, and then you have the rest that do physical. Those are also the ones you want to protect against, because they hit harder. They hit harder, they get in your face, and this thing can just save you. So, yeah. That's the ranking list. My next video is going to be me. I'm going to be reviewing the Ashlands biome. I'm also going to be taking into account how it felt on launch of the public test beta. Like, how did it feel the moment I ventured into the Ashlands? Because it played a pretty big role in my opinions of the biome. I have some positive things to say, and I have some pretty negative things to say about it as well. And I think it's gonna be interesting to talk about. Anyways, let me know what you think about my ranking here in the comments, and I'd love to see yours. I will see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.